In the tapestry of American suburbia, where neat lawns and quiet streets often paint a picture of idyllic normalcy, some threads tragically unravel. These are the narratives of lives brutally cut short, leaving behind an echoing void of unanswered questions and profound grief. Today, we confront one of those enduring mysteries, the unsolved murder of Renee Freer. On a cold Friday morning in December 1981, a horrifying discovery shattered the calm of southern New Jersey. Concealed in a desolate wooded area lay the body of a vibrant young woman, brutally murdered. Her name was Renee Freer, a 24-year-old whose sudden disappearance days earlier had already ignited a desperate search and a growing sense of dread in her community. For over 4 decades, Renee's case has remained a stubborn, heartbreaking enigma. Despite the unwavering dedication of law enforcement, the relentless pursuit of leads, and the enduring agony of a family yearning for truth, her killer has never been identified, never been brought to justice. This is a story that goes beyond a single crime. It's a profound examination of a promising life tragically interrupted, a community gripped by fear, and an investigation that, despite every effort, has spiraled into a complex labyrinth of dead ends, theories, and persistent whispers. Join us as we meticulously retrace the final days of Renee Freer, delve deep into the intricate, often frustrating path of a decades-long police inquiry, and grapple with the haunting questions that continue to echo in the chilling silence of an unsolved murder. We seek to understand not just what happened, but the profound human cost of a justice denied. Renee Marie Freer entered the world in 1957. Raised in the suburban landscape of southern New Jersey, she was, by all accounts, a young woman defined by her intelligence, her deep-seated independence, and an admirable work ethic. She harbored dreams and ambitions, setting her sights on a future full of possibility. By 1981, at the age of 24, Renee had cultivated a life of self-reliance, living in her own apartment within the sprawling Lindenwold Gardens complex in Lindenwold, New Jersey. Her professional life was well established. Renee was employed as an administrative assistant at an insurance company located in the heart of Philadelphia. This was a role that demanded responsibility and precision, and it necessitated a daily commute that was a familiar, almost ritualistic part of her weekday routine. Each morning, Renee would rise before the sun, often in the quiet darkness, to embark on the approximately 20-mile journey. Her route would take her through the bustling streets of Camden, then across the iconic Walt Whitman Bridge, leading her directly into the vibrant pulse of downtown Philadelphia. It was a journey she had undertaken countless times, a path of predictability and regularity that had never once hinted at the terror that lay ahead. The last time anyone definitively saw Renee Freer alive was on the evening of Sunday, November 29, 1981. That day had been typical, a warm and comforting conclusion to her weekend. She had spent quality time with her beloved family, sharing laughter and stories, before returning to the solitude of her Lindenwold apartment. The next day, Monday, November 30th, was a work day. Renee was expected to be at her desk, fulfilling her professional commitments. But Monday morning came and went. Renee Freer never arrived at work. Her absence immediately ignited a spark of unease that quickly escalated into a roaring fire of alarm. It was profoundly out of character for Renee, a woman of meticulous habits, to miss work without so much as a phone call, let alone to simply vanish without a trace. Her employer, noting her uncharacteristic absence, attempted to reach her, as did her increasingly frantic family. Phone calls to her apartment went unanswered, each ring amplifying the growing sense of dread. As the hours stretched into a torturous void, the quiet concern mutated into outright palpable panic. Her family, recognizing the gravity of the situation, promptly reported her missing to the Lindenwold Police Department.
The initial phase of the investigation began with a logical, yet ultimately fruitless search for mundane explanations. Had her car suffered a breakdown? Had she perhaps made a spontaneous decision to take a day off without informing anyone? But these ordinary possibilities quickly dissipated, replaced by a far more terrifying and sinister reality. Her vehicle, a distinctive 1978 Toyota Corolla, was discovered abandoned in the parking lot of her own apartment complex. This detail was not merely significant, it was critical. Renee relied on her car for her daily commute. The presence of her car, coupled with her absolute and total contact, cemented the growing fear something profoundly and terribly wrong had befallen Renee Freer. The desperate, heart-wrenching search for Renee Freer dragged on for 5 agonizing days, each passing hour intensifying the family's despair. Then, on Friday, December 4, 1981, the worst fears imaginable were tragically confirmed. A utility worker, engaged in routine maintenance in a remote, densely wooded section of Franklin Township, Gloucester County, stumbled upon a horrifying sight. Concealed beneath a haphazard pile of branches and natural debris, approximately 20 miles south of Renee's Lindenwold apartment, lay the body of her missing daughter. The scene was immediately secured by law enforcement, transformed into a solemn tableau of investigation. The location itself was chillingly unsettling. A secluded area off January Road, far removed from any major thoroughfare or residential hub, strongly suggesting that Renee had been deliberately taken there with the specific intent of concealing her body and the crime. The preliminary examination conducted at the scene, followed by a more comprehensive autopsy, painted a brutal and unambiguous picture of the truth. Renee had been sexually assaulted and then brutally murdered by strangulation. The medical examination also revealed significant signs of a severe beating, indicating a prolonged and vicious attack, perhaps fueled by extreme rage or a deliberate intent to inflict pain. Investigators from the Gloucester County Prosecutor's Office, working in close collaboration with the seasoned New Jersey State Police, immediately assumed control of the burgeoning murder investigation. The very first and most crucial steps involved the meticulous collection of every possible piece of evidence from the grim crime scene. Detectives, forensic specialists, and uniformed officers painstakingly combed through every inch of the area, searching for anything: fibers, latent fingerprints, shoe impressions, or any minute item that the killer might have inadvertently left behind. The stark contrast between the discovery of Renee's car in her apartment complex parking lot and the recovery of her body 20 miles distant was a critical insight. It strongly suggested a deliberate abduction, implying that the perpetrator either ambushed her at her apartment or managed to coerce her into their vehicle without her own car. The absence of any forced entry into her apartment or her car further complicated matters, raising the unsettling possibility of an acquaintance or someone she felt compelled, perhaps under duress, to comply with. Was she lured out? Was she confronted and forced? As news of the horrific discovery filtered through the quiet communities, a palpable wave of shock, fear, and profound sadness rippled across southern New Jersey. The chilling image of a young, innocent woman abducted from her home and murdered in such a brutal manner sent an unsettling message through what were traditionally considered safe suburban neighborhoods. Local media coverage was immediate and extensive, keeping the case in the public consciousness, yet offering little comfort to a grieving family trapped in a nightmare and a populace gripped by a newfound sense of vulnerability. Detectives tirelessly interviewed every individual connected to Renee: her distraught family members, her close friends, her professional colleagues, her immediate neighbors, and even casual acquaintances. They painstakingly attempted to retrace her last known movements, desperately hoping to uncover anyone who might have seen her after she returned home on Sunday night or in the very early hours of Monday morning. They explored every conceivable angle. Was this a random act of senseless violence? A tragic encounter with a stranger? Or was Renee specifically targeted by someone she knew? Was there a history of harassment or veiled threats? Despite their exhaustive initial inquiries, no clear or definitive answers emerged, and the path to justice remained obscured.
The investigation into Renee Freer's murder, even in its earliest stages, rapidly devolved into a deeply complex and increasingly frustrating puzzle for law enforcement. With no immediate witnesses to the abduction or murder, and critically, no clear signs of forced entry at her apartment, detectives were forced to explore multiple, often divergent avenues of inquiry. Each lead, though promising at first, seemed to twist into yet another dead end. Focus on acquaintances and inner circle. From the outset, investigators naturally turned their attention to individuals within Renee's immediate social and personal sphere. This included boyfriends, former boyfriends, male friends, and even close colleagues. The prevailing theory was that if she willingly allowed someone into her apartment in the early hours, it would most likely be someone she recognized and implicitly trusted. Each of these individuals underwent rigorous scrutiny. Their alibis were meticulously checked. Their movements on the crucial night were questioned, and extensive interviews were conducted. Some voluntarily submitted to polygraph examinations, a common investigative tool of the era. However, despite these exhaustive inquiries, none of these avenues yielded conclusive evidence or established a direct, undeniable link to the heinous crime. No one emerged as the clear, indisputable perpetrator. Consideration of serial killers and opportunistic violence. The sheer brutality of the attack, coupled with the remote nature of the body's discovery site, led some investigators to contemplate the unsettling possibility of a serial offender or a random, opportunistic killer. The location where Renee's body was found, a secluded wooded area, bore chilling resemblances to dumping grounds utilized by other known offenders in other regions. This raised concerns that a predator might be operating in the broader area. However, despite thorough cross-referencing and collaboration with other agencies, no definitive links were ever established to known serial killers active in the New Jersey or Philadelphia metropolitan area at that time. Renee's murder, while brutal, did not definitively fit a known pattern. The limitations of 1980s forensic science. A significant, albeit unavoidable challenge was the inherent limitations of forensic technology in the 1980s. While physical evidence was diligently collected from the crime scene and Renee's body, the full potential of these crucial details, particularly DNA, could not be realized. Techniques that are now standard, such as sophisticated DNA profiling from minute samples, were simply not available. Any fibers, hairs, or trace evidence found at the scene, while carefully preserved, might have been insufficient for a definitive match without the advanced analytical tools we possess today. Fingerprints, if indeed found, would require a direct match in existing databases, which were far less comprehensive and centralized than modern AFIS, Automated Fingerprint Identification System, databases. Furthermore, a critical complicating factor was the time lag between Renee's disappearance on Monday and the discovery of her body 5 days later on Friday. This crucial interval allowed significant time for potential evidence at the initial abduction site, her apartment complex parking lot, to be compromised or degraded by weather conditions, daily human activity, or even deliberate cleanup by the perpetrator. Similarly, the remote crime scene in the woods was exposed to the elements for days, potentially eroding or washing away vital clues before forensic teams could arrive. As the active investigation continued for months, then years, the once promising leads inevitably dwindled and eventually grew cold. The case, once a priority, gradually transitioned from an active daily pursuit to a periodic review by a dedicated cold case unit. Witness memories, once fresh, began to fade with the passage of time. Potential suspects moved away, started new lives, or tragically passed away themselves, taking any potential secrets with them. The trail, once warm, grew progressively colder with each passing year, shrouded in the mists of time and fading recollections.
Yet despite the formidable passage of over 4 decades, the Gloucester County Prosecutor's Office and the New Jersey State Police have consistently and adamantly affirmed that the Renee Freer case remains an active and unequivocally open investigation. They have periodically re-engaged with the public, issuing a nude call for assistance, desperately hoping that someone, somewhere, holds a critical piece of information, a memory, a suspicion, a hidden detail that could finally unlock this stubborn mystery. In the modern era of cold case investigations, DNA analysis has emerged as the single most potent weapon in the fight against unsolved crimes. Cases that were once relegated to dusty archives, deemed utterly hopeless, are now being cracked decades later thanks to the revolutionary ability to extract and analyze even the most minute, almost invisible traces of genetic material. The most pressing question regarding Renee Freer's case, nearly 44 years on, is crucial. Have the critical pieces of biological evidence collected in 1981 been meticulously preserved? And more importantly, can those decades-old samples now yield the definitive answers that were unattainable at the time of the original investigation? Law enforcement agencies across the country, including those in New Jersey, regularly undertake comprehensive reviews of their cold case files. This systematic process often involves sending old, archived evidence to state-of-the-art forensic laboratories for rigorous re-examination using the very latest scientific techniques. This critically includes applying forensic genealogy, the same groundbreaking technique that has successfully solved numerous high-profile cold cases across the nation, such as the infamous Golden State Killer case and the recently resolved murder of Rita Curran, whom we discussed earlier. It is highly probable, given the diligence of modern cold case units, that any biological evidence originally collected from Renee's body or the crime scene in 1981 would have been meticulously re-examined with today's sophisticated DNA technology. Even samples that were once considered too minute, too degraded, or too contaminated can now, in many instances, yield a full and comprehensive DNA profile of an unknown suspect. If such a DNA profile of the perpetrator exists from Renee's case, the next vital step would be to upload it to public genealogical databases such as GEDmatch or Family Tree DNA, seeking a familial match, a cousin, a distant relative who has voluntarily submitted their own DNA. However, the path to a solution often remains challenging even with advanced science. The primary hurdle often lies not just in the scientific process itself, but in the human element. The initial collection of evidence in 1981, while conducted with the best available practices for its time, might have inadvertently missed subtle nuances or microscopic traces that only modern, highly sensitive methods could detect. Furthermore, for forensic genealogy to work, the perpetrator's DNA or the DNA of a close relative must be present in one of the public databases being searched. This requires either the suspect themselves to have been arrested and had their DNA entered into a law enforcement database, or for them or their close family member to have voluntarily submitted their DNA to a consumer genealogical service. The Gloucester County Prosecutor's Office maintains a dedicated cold case unit, and the New Jersey State Police continue their persistent work on historical unsolved homicides. Renee Freer's murder is consistently and prominently listed among their priority cold cases. They actively encourage anyone with even the slightest piece of information, no matter how insignificant or trivial it may seem after all these years, to come forward. They understand that a single detail could be the missing puzzle piece. The enduring hope is that with the relentless passage of time, memories might finally surface, perhaps from individuals who were too young or too afraid to speak at the time of the crime. Or perhaps consciences might be stirred, compelling someone to break decades of silence. The weight of hidden truth can become unbearable. The family of Renee Freer has never, for a single moment, given up their hope for justice. They have lived with this unbearable burden, this gaping wound of the unknown, for over 40 years, yearning for the day her killer is finally identified and held accountable. Their steadfast determination, their unwavering plea for answers, remains a powerful, driving force behind the ongoing, tireless efforts to solve this heartbreaking case.
Beyond the procedural details of the investigation and the astounding advancements in forensic science lies the profound human cost of an unsolved murder. Renee Freer was not just a name in a police file. She was a beloved daughter, a cherished sister, a loyal friend, and a promising young woman whose life was stolen in the most brutal way imaginable. The ripple effect of her death has spread outwards, touching every person who knew her and leaving an indelible scar on the community where she lived and worked. For her family, the absence of answers is a daily torment. The inability to fully grieve, to understand why, to see justice served, creates a unique kind of prolonged suffering. Every milestone, every holiday, every ordinary day is shadowed by the knowledge that Renee's killer walks free. They are left to grapple not only with her loss, but with the phantom presence of her assailant, an unknown entity that continues to evade accountability. This continuous uncertainty impacts every aspect of their lives, from their emotional well-being to their sense of security in the world. The community, too, bears the weight of such an unsolved crime. An unknown killer lurking for decades creates a subtle but persistent undercurrent of unease. It erodes the fundamental sense of safety that people expect in their homes and neighborhoods. When a case remains cold for so long, it can also lead to speculation, rumor, and a loss of faith in the justice system, even when investigators are doing everything within their power. The enduring nature of Renee Freer's case highlights several critical aspects of cold case investigations. It underscores the vital importance of preserving physical evidence for decades, even when technology isn't yet available to utilize it fully. It champions the unwavering dedication of cold case detectives, who often work tirelessly behind the scenes, fueled by a commitment to victims and their families long after the initial media frenzy has died down. And, perhaps most importantly, it emphasizes the indispensable role of the public. Even the smallest piece of information, a forgotten detail, a conversation overheard years ago, could be the key to unlocking a breakthrough. The passage of time can work both ways. It can erode memories, but it can also change circumstances. Relationships shift, allegiances falter, and new technologies emerge. Someone who was silent out of fear or loyalty decades ago might now be willing or even compelled to speak. The burden of guilt can weigh heavily on a conscience, eventually breaking through the silence. To this day, the Gloucester County Prosecutor's Office and the New Jersey State Police continue their commitment to Renee Freer's case. They have a dedicated hotline and anonymous tip lines for anyone who might possess information. This is not just a statistical cold case. It is a human life, a family's tragedy, and a community's lingering question. The detectives working this case carry the weight of this unsolved mystery daily, driven by the hope that one day they will be able to deliver the answers that Renee's family so desperately deserves. Renee Freer's story is a poignant reminder that while crime can take a life, it cannot erase the memory or the demand for justice. Her spirit lives on in the hearts of those who loved her and in the persistent pursuit of truth that echoes across the decades. May her case, like so many others recently, finally find its resolution. The tragic, unsolved murder of Renee Freer remains a testament to the complex nature of cold case investigations. It is a story of enduring grief, scientific progress, and the relentless pursuit of justice against the formidable adversary of time. For over 40 years, her family has carried this heavy burden. Now, more than ever, with advancements in forensic technology and the continued dedication of law enforcement, the hope for answers burns brighter. If you or someone you know possess any information, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem regarding the murder of Renee Freer, please consider coming forward. Every piece of information matters. Every tip could be the missing link. Your contribution could be the key to finally bringing closure to Renee's family and holding her killer accountable after all these years. Contact the Gloucester County Prosecutor's Office Cold Case Unit or the New Jersey State Police. Information can be provided anonymously. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into one of America's most enduring unsolved mysteries. What are your thoughts on the Renee Freer case? Share your perspectives and theories respectfully in the comments section below. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive and the search for justice ongoing.